Rebic, Rafa, tira, gol! Rafael Leao! Oggi segna Leao! La mia giornata è iniziata così!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Gian Mario.
Wow, don't use my Sunday name on a Tuesday. Yeah, good to be back, guys.
And we've got Stefano.
Yeah, the Italian connection here in the bottom left and top right corner. But yeah, good to be back.
Like it. And we've got Sia back with us. It's been a while since the last time we had a derby preview, but it's great to have you back on. And
yeah, I couldn't say no, seeing how it went last time, because it would have been like 7 years of bad luck. So I had to join again. I was like, if you wouldn't have messaged me, I would have called you and be like, please have me.
When we recorded. Yeah. 7 years of bad luck. That's what it feels like for us in terms of derbies, to be honest. But yeah, last time we recorded was when it was an absolutely fundamental game in last season. We'd just been overthrown from first place and things weren't feeling good. We just lost to Spezia in a game that was really bad. This time we've just lost to Spezia and drawn against Juve in between in controversial circumstances. And it feels pretty much like Inter have a grip. They've got one hand on the league title. We'll see. But yeah, it's good to have you on behind enemy lines and all that. So I guess the first thing that we should do, rather than talk about this game, talk about everything that's led up to it. This time last season, relatively similar time last season. Things were going great under Conte. Lukaku was firing. Hakimi was the best right back in the league. You know, we all knew how the narrative was. Inter ended up running away with the title. Deserved winners. Then in the summer, big overhaul. Conte goes, Lukaku goes, Hakimi goes. Players arrived to fill the void, albeit with less expenditure. How did you feel going into this season? How did you feel about the overhaul that happened, about Inzaghi coming in, about the players you signed, the players you lost? Were you thinking that it might be tough to reclaim the title?
I also think Eriksen almost died. So
that's the point.
And he was when he came into the team with the derby free kick, and he was good in the derby as well, and he unlocked a lot of games in the Scudetto run, when it was at 0-0. So I think I was very worried about that, as well as Hakimi and Lukaku and Conte leaving. I was more worried about how the group would react, because they had created such a solid and fun and good group. So I was wondering how they'd react. But I think many Inter fans during the summer were very alarmist, and I think that they quickly forgot how much good this team had. I think when I looked at the starting 11, I saw a team that was still competitive. I thought Juve would be the big favorites together with Milan, because I saw two teams that I think most of us thought that Pirlo was the problem at Juve. Now we know that wasn't the case. I think that at Milan they reinforced the team and they didn't lose any. Donnarumma was replaced straight away, and Calhanoglu, nobody except me rated more or less. So I think that Milan were more or less confident with the market they did. So, but I was always confident that Inter would compete. I feel like I was more disappointed with Lukaku and the way he said he stay, like he does now more or less, and not staying, and with the owners who sold for almost 200 million euros and spent like 30-40 million euros. I think that was my most the thing I was most worried about, because I really thought that this team, for example, in the summer, you could get Rodrigo De Paul for 35 million euros. You could have gotten maybe a striker. You could have gone for Vlahovic. I think they did, but I think that was my worrying point. I really felt that if they would have injected the money that they sold for, this would have been a clear Scudetto favorite, and I don't think we were when the season started. But I was one of few that was very, very confident, because I thought that last year we depended so much on Lukaku, and he was, he scored 25 goals, and I think Hakimi, you could never replace him well enough because he brings so much to the game. Eriksen, I think he was the player who was replaced the best with Calhanoglu, because I think Eriksen is better on everything, but Chala is like, Eriksen on Wish. So you get the set pieces, you get the assists, you get some goals, you get some in build up, and he's better in defense than I thought. So I was calm about that. And I really thought that when I looked at the numbers from last season, Inter had Lukaku scoring, 26, I think, and Lautaro scoring 17. And then, a bunch of players who scored 7 or 5 or 4. So I really thought that there was good possibility for the goals to come in from Dzeko, from the midfielders, from Perisic, from the centre backs, and Calhanoglu. So I was quite confident, but I never thought Inter would be leading the league with 4 points and, more or less having a possibility to kill the league if they win the next 2 games.
Yeah, and that's where we're at. It's become do or die for us. I mean, I said in the pre-season predictions that I thought Inter would be second in the league. I put Juve to win it. I thought that they would have more of a seamless transition. It was always going to be difficult, but I thought that they would be instantly competitive again under Allegri, and I made those predictions while it looked like Ronaldo was going to stay, and you can never count him out under a coach that he likes. And I thought Inter actually, in replacing Conte, it was going to be very difficult. He's a fantastic manager. He's a bit of a maniac, but you know what you're getting with him. He's absolutely fanatic about coaching, about making teams play his way. But then I thought that Inzaghi was actually the perfect guy to bring in after that. Never really got full credit for the work that he did at Lazio. Obviously transformed them from being a bit of a joke, to be honest, into being sort of perennial pains in the arses for the establishment in Serie A. And coming in playing a 3-5-2, they made wise signings given that we all knew the financial shit that Inter were in. It was no joke. They needed to raise an awful lot of money, and they managed to do it. Lukaku's Lukaku. He was amazing in Serie A. He was unplayable on his day. Is Dzeko ever going to be unplayable? I don't think so. But Lautaro stepped his game up. Others have stepped their game up. Getting like crucial contributions from players like Darmian and Perisic and stuff. And it just goes to show the value of the squad that's there. I think
Lukaku was... So the thing that Inter really had, like I love fast players. I really think that all good teams need speed. I think Milan is a good example of that. There is a big difference when Theo and Leao go on a run and when it's someone else. And I think that what Inter had with Lukaku and Hakimi was speed. So if teams didn't face Inter with 10 players in the box, if Lukaku and Hakimi went, they went. They were gone. You couldn't catch them. And, I think they lost that. And I really like I hated facing Simone Inzaghi. I can't say I didn't. I rated him as a crybaby coach, in a small team. But
Simone.
Yeah, when I started then looking at it like on a broader perspective, I saw a coach that was playing the same system more or less, that performed good football with a team that honestly doesn't have good enough football players to perform the football they do. You can see with Sarri now. I mean, if you look at the numbers that Lazio are doing, they are not creating good chances. They are not playing fun football. They are not doing nowhere near what they were doing with Simone. So, and I looked at something that I think is important, that he's the only coach who won titles during Juve's reign. He beat them in a cup final twice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He won, and I think that speaks about a coach that knows how to win with the small team. And I think when you come to a team that's just won, that's important. And I think that he is, when I listen to what Lazio players said about him and stuff like Luis Alberto and those guys, they always said like Luis Alberto was like, I wanted to quit football, but then Inzaghi talked to me. He's very like human and down to earth. And I think Conte is the straight opposite, maniac, as you said. Very, very hard on details, very, very hard on, the match preparations, eating well, sleeping well. He's very much about, the grinding your teeth, the taste of blood in your mouth, always at war, always at high tension. And we had that under Mourinho. And, the players came out and they won everything, but they were finished. They were absolutely done with. And I think we saw that when Benitez came, he, was trying to do the same, couldn't do it. And then Leonardo came, who wasn't, he wasn't a coach back then. He was a guy who was fun to hang out with, and it went so well. And I think Simone Inzaghi obviously is a good coach, but he's also a very human kind of guy that I think this team really needed now. So either you have Conte for 2 years and you get the maximum, but then you need someone who can give the players happiness. And I think that the group, when they saw all the talks about, Inter finished, Lukaku left, Hakimi left, Conte left, those were the key players. I think the group reacted like they should. They thought like, we won the title as well. We were here as well. We want to do it again. And I think they signed a player like Dzeko, who would, he hasn't won anything. And he's determined to win. And he's not Lukaku, so you can't play on the counter anymore for Inter. You have to play good football. And I think Inzaghi has managed to do what Conte couldn't. The first derby last year when Inter lost, Inter was playing really good football. The backline was high. They were pressing high. They were creating a lot of chances. But, then Milan got 2, 3, 4, 100% occasions. And, if Zlatan has the day, he will score. I think then Conte, after Inter getting eliminated while playing really good football in Champions League, he decided to change and go back to the, more balanced. But I think Inzaghi has found balance while still being very offensive. And that's the impressive part about his work, other than the, human part where he's more relaxed and more kind. And the players are happy. And if the players are happy, you have something good going on. But I think this couldn't have happened if Conte didn't leave an absolutely monstrous group out of, physical, technical, tactical, and mental point of view. Because 2 years ago, this was a bunch of losers, to be honest. We interplayed last round against Lazio to go to the Champions League, last round against Empoli to go to, and it was a shit show, to be honest, But now these guys are acting like champions, and they are handling situations like champions. Inter goes down in a game, you're never worried. They will manage it. So they have done very well, and I'm a bit surprised that they have done this well. But I saw many of the good things coming. I just didn't think it would be so quick.
Yeah, boys, were you unpleasantly surprised by how good they've been?
I'll let you go first, Steph.
No, I thought I don't think they'd kind of fall off the wagon a little bit. I think they'd be okay, but obviously, what Sia's saying there, the impact on players like Lukaku going, you do lose that sort of individual aspect of talents on the counter attack. But they have an overall great core defensively. They're quite astute. Well, they're very astute. They're probably one of the best sides defensively. I noticed as well their discipline is fantastic. They rarely get bookings. Rarely get in situations where they're down the man. So they seem to be reacting really well. And the mental approach to the game. And that's where I think they're very dangerous when it comes to game management. They know how to switch it on or sort of like lock it in defensively. So that's kind of my fear going into this derby, that they're just mentally just a bit more prepared for this than, say, Milan are in this occasion. But they've been fantastic this season, I have to say, since they had a bit of a rocky start. Well, October, they dropped a few points, but nothing really to sort of make you think they weren't in the title race. And then once Milan obviously dropped a few points, they sort of stuck in and they've held the ground quite well. So this is such an important derby, I think. And I'm just looking forward to it. And hopefully, we get the win. But it's going to be a tight one.
Yeah, like you said, unpleasantly surprised by it, I guess. Like I always had Inter to finish in the top 4. This season, but when you lose 2 big players like Lukaku and Hakimi, were a bit like when Milan lost Ibra and Thiago Silva, and then you lose probably one of the best managers in world football, and then you replace him with Inzaghi's a good manager. I don't like him. So when you lose 3 like important club members, players, coaches like that, even the fitness coach, I honestly thought they'd be in for a tougher time than what they are, and then taking our scraps in Calhanoglu. I didn't expect it to go kind of as well as it is going for him now, but we've seen him for the past 4 years, and we know how inconsistent he can be. So I just hope that he drops one of them stinkers at the weekend, like we know he can. But now look, this will come to bite me back in the arse.
Oh mate, I'm clipping it. I'm getting it clipped. I didn't realise that it was the last derby that basically was the start of Hakan's purple patch. He got the penalty. Yeah. Well, the penalty, and then he took it, scored it, and then for some reason Lautaro took the second one. I don't really understand that. I think Hakan should have taken the second one, and that's me saying that. But since then, he's been on a really good run of goal contributions. I'm not able to pinpoint it. Like I've watched into plenty this season. Perhaps it's a systematic thing from a formation point of view, the role that he's playing, the responsibilities that he has. Perhaps he's just surrounded by a bit better quality, or he's surrounded by players that are more well suited to him. I can't really explain though where this has come from. This last 3 months, let's say, I don't really know where it's come from, because, as Gian says, we've seen good spells from him during his 4 years that he was here, but he never really hit the heights that were expected, especially when we put him in that favoured number 10 role, the one that was supposedly going to unlock him, having played him as a winger under Gattuso and having played him in a midfield 3 before. And so we finally played him in that number 10 role. He had his good moments, but he had more bad moments than good. Whereas it's like he's best.
I didn't kind of expect him to be like, he deserved to be player of the month like 2 times, and I honestly think he was the MVP of Serie A until now. I think that he is a player who can't be alonely responsible for a team's offensive action. I think he's just not there, and I think his decision making in the last third isn't as good as a player in, like, you can see on Ericsson, for example. You obviously compare it to Brahim Diaz, who I'm honestly don't think is very impressive at the moment, but he had a good start. And back then, it looked like Brahim was doing everything that Hakan couldn't. But if I compare with Ericsson, I can see that Ericsson has the instinct of doing what a number 10 should do without watching, seeing, thinking, right? Hakan doesn't really have that. I mean, I think he's much more like box-to-box midfielder than a number 10. And I think at Inter, he has found a role where he isn't the only responsible, where he can, sometimes Perisic comes, and sometimes Barella comes, sometimes Brozovic comes. And, he can just feel that if I put in a good cross, it's a good cross. I don't have to be the assist and points man. And then he obviously has a good shot and he has a good foot, so he can do good things. And I think that the system Inter is playing in and his kind of will to get revenge got more out of him than I would have thought, because I think he's been in the big games, like against Real Madrid, against Juventus, against Milan, against Napoli. He's been Inter's best player in every game. And I didn't expect him to have that in him mentality-wise. I thought, because I think the turning point of Inter season was when Hakan took that penalty. Just like last season when Zlatan and Lukaku got into that argument, that was the turning point of the season in many ways, because the team stood up for each other, and, Milan team stood up for each other as well. But I think for Inter, that was so important, because then they went on to win. And I think everyone at Inter felt that they should have won the derby, even if Milan hit the post in the end and stuff like that. So I think when Hakan felt that I can be this guy, I can take a penalty, I can score, I can perform well, I have all my teammates with me, I have the fans with me, I think that was a massive goal for him. And I think he's better defensively than offensive, and that's strange to say when the guy has like 7.6 or something, but he wins a lot of duels for Inter. He wins the ball a lot. He's good in distribution, and this I didn't know. I knew that he's useful in offensive game. I knew that he, gets a lot of key passes on corners. I knew that he will eventually fire in a shot from outside the box. He will eventually do an assist. But all the other
Wait
stuff,
until he
like
scores a free kick.
yeah,
Then you will
but
be surprised.
I don't think that will happen at Inter. But
Juve might have won a Champions League by then.
yeah, exactly. But you know the amount, the quantity. I knew about his quality, and I defended him even at Milan. I think I have a tweet from like January last year writing, I think Milan should be looking at renewing Calhanoglu's contract because you don't get a player like that for the same wages on the market, right? But I knew about that, but I've been surprised about his defensive quantity and how much work he does for the team, and absolutely mind blown by that. So no, I think it's been a very good signing. If he keeps this up, he will be the signing of the season. But I think to in the weekend a new chapter of his story at Inter will be written.
That's true. And also you said on the defensive side of things, I think we twice or three times started him as the regista under I want to say it was under Gattuso when we really did run out of options in midfield and we played him at the base of the midfield, and actually he didn't look horrendous there. So maybe that goes to show that he's been suited to a more deeper role from day one.
But that's the thing at Inter. You have Brozovic, who is like, he is the key of everything, right? If you take Brozovic out of Inter doesn't look good. It really looks bad. He's probably the only player that Inter can't miss. But with Brozovic being that guy, Calhanoglu is just having fun and playing around. He's not the key guy in defensive distribution. He's not the key guy in offensive because Barella obviously needs to get more done. But so he is a one amongst many, and I think it suits him a lot better than being number 10 at Milan.
He has like a freedom role in the midfield. I think you're right there. I think the importance is I think I've seen it defensively. He can track back. He's actually quite impressive with some like slide tackle interceptions. I've seen it in his Milan time. But the problem is once you put the impetus on him to be the spear point in the attacking midfield, or if you ask him to be like the distribution player from midfield, or ask him to play at left winger, he's not fantastic at any of those positions, but he's great as just a sort of a freedom role who can do a little bit of everything, chime in. And as you're saying, if he can put a cross in there, and so what if it doesn't hit the markers, it will come out, and then his side is set up to.
He also doesn't have Ibra shouting at him.
It doesn't have Ibra shouting at him. So he's gone to an environment which is, I think it's quite complementary to his motivation and his character, which obviously probably. I'm interested to see if Inter go for a bad spell. Well, hopefully at some point for a Milan fan. But if they do, how does his motivation obviously affect his way of playing on the pitch? Because obviously it's good now. We've seen it as Milan fans. When it's not good, it seems to affect his game. So,
but I feel at Milan, he was like one of three guys that get all the stick. And I think he couldn't handle that, because I think the most important thing for him is that now Milan Twitter isn't his mentions and Instagram anymore. I've understood that some Milan players are like really hurt about fans' behavior against them. Like probably now it's Castillejo, which he isn't playing. So, but I think Chala got a lot too much criticism for his time at Milan.
I think with Calhanoglu, we were our own worst enemy, and the hate, the banners, everything that we've given towards him has just fueled him to, turn into this kind of like step it up a level this season. We didn't really support it. As fans, you're supposed to kind of support your players when they're going through a bad patch and back them, and instead, like you said, we were constantly in his mentions, even to the point of death threats.
Yeah, it was awful.
Towards his wife, stuff like that. You've seen it with the banners, and I think that's just now fueled him to become this next level at Inter. But with Calhanoglu, as much as I'm kind of glad he's gone, I did say in the summer it's going to be hard to replace 20 goals a season, which is what he did for us last year. Goals and assists combined, it were in I think it was 20 or 21 that he got for us in all competitions. So that's a lot to replace.
And I think the corners, the corners are important. Like I think. I did some like statistical research, and I think before last year's derby, last season, when Inter won 3-0, Milan was like by far top team from corners, in chance creating. And in that derby, I think Ibra has 2 or 3 headers from a corner that are, really close to becoming goal. But my friend Samir Handanovic pulled off good saves for once. But I think at Inter, if you have a guy like Calhanoglu, because who puts the corners the way he does, you know, with Skriniar, with De Vrij, with Dzeko, with Dumfries, with Perisic, there's a lot of big guys there. And I think even though, you know, Milan scored probably more free kick goals this season than any other season, but I see the corners and I think that 1 of 5 are good. I see it Inter, and I think if we have 5 corners, 5 of them are really good. You know, there's an occasion on every corner, and you know, when he was in this super form after the Derby penalty, it felt like corners were penalties for Inter at one stage. And I think in today's football, that makes a big difference because, you know, all the teams are talking about set pieces. They have set piece coaches, set piece analysts, set piece, you know, 3 guys working with set pieces. And I think that's something that Milan has been missing this season and that Inter has in both Calhanoglu and also Di Marco as a good left foot.
Yeah, I think you're right about that to a point where it's complementary to Inter. But I think for Milan and the way we set up, who in our side is going to be like a corner threat other than Ibra? Like even our centre backs, Kai has probably only scored that 1 goal against Manchester United in his whole Milan career from a corner. Tomori's one against Liverpool was a deflection. It's not because of good distribution, and these players we just don't have are probably good in the air so much. We have much more open players that can create stuff in transition. Salamakers, Leao, more natural goals that come in open play. I just don't think, as much as you're right, and I think he's a great threat from corners, I just don't think it's ever really been able to sort of like relay its way into, you know, of course it's creating a chance. I just don't think we have the players to convert it. Although we did score a lot more corners last year than we did this year. But yeah, it's working out.
It's on them, mate. It's on them. We miss so many good chances from set pieces. You know, headers onto the roof of the net. I mean, I think Kier hit the bar 3 times with headers from corners last year. That's unlucky. Like, you know, that's probably not going to happen again. But Gabia missing them. Romagnoli, I think, has won this season from a near post that went in, but we ended up going on to lose that game, and he missed a good chance to make it 2-0 against Sassuolo in that game. And it's stuff like that, little turning points. We're not great on set pieces. It used to be a value added for us, but now I think we let too many in. We're not necessarily bad on the first ball. I say that Genoa Coppa Italia game when he got a free header on his debut. But we're really bad on the second ball. We don't react quick enough when the ball drops inside the area. And that really hurts us. And that can be a massive threat for Inter, definitely, in this one. Speaking of which, I was going to go into some of the key battles for this game. I mean, we know where we're at in the league. It's going to be dubbed a must-win for us, is this. And I don't think it's technically true. It's there's a lot of points to play for, so I don't think anything can ever be a must-win with so many games left in the season. But with the Spezia defeat looming, with our inability to beat a very poor Juve side, with Inter 4 points ahead, game in hand, with Napoli having climbed back above us, albeit on goal difference and, well, head-to-head, this is big for us in momentum terms. A draw doesn't really do an awful lot for either team because, you know, that could then result in Napoli breathing down Inter's necks a bit more. A win makes Inter massive Scudetto favourites, definitely. Whereas a win for us reopens everything again, and everything with our inactivity in a January transfer market gets forgotten about. I'm looking at some of the areas where this game might be won and lost. You know, the battle between Tonali and Barella is going to be absolutely fascinating, obviously providing that they both start, but they should do. There's rumours at the moment that we are going to play Kessie in a more advanced role like we did in the Empoli win. We're going to try and pin Brozovic, basically disrupt some of the deeper build-up stuff, and also in attack try get Brozovic dragged a little bit deeper and sort of cause a bit of confusion for the fantastic back three that Inter have. Obviously, Teo, he's 1 yellow away from a suspension, but that's going to be a hell of a battle down the left side. And we are not going to have Fikayo Tomori by the sounds of it at the moment. So it's going to be a case of, I presume, Dzeko and Lautaro will be hopefully pocketed by Romagnoli and Kalulu. We'll see, but that's not our first choice centre-back pairing. In fact, neither of them are, to be honest. So, yeah, plenty of key things. Where do we see this one being won and lost?
I mean, I see it down the left side, man. I think Inter are probably going to start off with, I'm guessing, Darmian at right wing back, and then obviously Skriniar covers the right centre back position. I think if Milan can do right with Kessie, taking a little bit away of defensive pressure from players like Teo and Leao and gives them that license to roam and hopefully go at these defenders, for me, that's where it's won from the Milan perspective, and it's going to be lost from the Milan perspective if the centre-backs have a nightmare against Dzeko and Lautaro.
Yeah, for me, I think this game, Romagnoli and Kalulu have got to have the best games they've ever had, and then some in the derby. Like, they've got to, like, Romagnoli, 6 million per season. If he wants that renewal, this is a game where he's just got to step up. But not only from a defensive perspective, but as the captain, as the leader of the whole team, he's got to step up, grab the game by the balls, and push this team to victory. And then I guess for us up front, we're creating plenty of chances, and it's again a bit of a story like last season where we'll create chance after chance after chance, but we're not necessarily finishing. Yes, we're the second highest scoring team in the league, but I still think we're missing that mobile forward that Ibra just isn't is for us now. Giroud's not that. I think the best chance we could have there is starting Rebic up top, but then does he get bullied by, Skriniar, De Vrij, Bastoni? But yeah, for me, the game's definitely going to be won or lost with Romagnoli and Kalulu.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I'd say that the opposite way also might be won with Leao and Theo, right? I think Theo was missed last derby. But I think that Inter are dangerous on that wing. I think with Kalulu, I think he's had a great season. But he's a bit short, and if he goes up against either Dzeko or Lautaro is short, not so tall as Dzeko, but he's good on the head. And I think Calabria with Perisic is, even though Calabria is good defensively and pays a lot of attention, I think that can be a key battle because Perisic is both good at dribbling and heading and stuff like that. So,
I think that side, it's whoever turns up on the day between Calabria and Perisic.
Yeah.
Calabria on his day is one of the best right backs in the league, but then Perisic on his day is one of the best wing backs in the league. I hate to say it, but it's fantastic. If I was purely, and I'm not, I don't get paid to even make these kind of calls, but I'd be more tempted to put Salamakers on the left to kind of help Teo with the defensive work, and then put Leao on the right, so he's got more freedom to attack Perisic and that right-hand side. I think going with the way it's rumoured with Rebic on one wing, Leao on the other wing, I think that's a bit dangerous for us. Put too much attacking. I think we need to.
But I think that's also probably the only way to keep Dumfries and the Inter wingers to attack too much as well, because I don't see Dumfries attacking if Leao and Theo are starting. I see him. I even say maybe Darmian starts because that's the wing. But if Pioli is starting Kessie as the trequartista, I think that's the defensive move that they will make to cover the wings. I think the mismatch is in the height and the physics that Perisic and Dzeko, the mismatch there that they put in against Kalulu and Calabria can be very dangerous for Milan, and I think it will be seen on set pieces as well. But I also think that this game, for with the individual quality in the game, is a game that there's not you can't say this is the area that will decide the game. There is so many duels, there's so many individual quality players. There are so many, depending on if Giroud plays or if Zlatan plays, both of those guys have scored in big games. If they get a good cross in, they'll be able to head it in against, three big guys in the Inter defense. So I think there are so many battles going on. But for me, I think the worrying thing is Milan's left wing and transition with especially Theo. And the and the mismatch in between Kalulu and Dzeko, Lautaro, and also Perisic on the wing. I think for the rest, Calhanoglu can score a banger from 20 meters, but I don't expect that. And I think the same goes for Tonali and Benacer and the guys, and Kessie as well. I think he's done well when he's been playing a bit higher up in the pitch because he comes into the box with a lot of heavy weight, and he doesn't necessarily lose the ball in front of defense, which he sometimes does.
Yeah, he did in the last derby. That was good of him to do.
So I think there are so many battles in this game, but I also think that it's a fun game for that. I just think that without Tomori, Milan loses a lot of speed, and that's a big problem.
It is, because as much as we all love Kalulu, like, he's exceeded expectations for a guy who cost 500k from Lille and never had a senior from Lyon, and never had a senior appearance. He's a Tomori mold of defender. He's aggressive. He's quick into the challenge. He is shorter than your average centre back. And he hasn't got the same aerial prowess, but at the same time, I think we've been surprised at how well he has played the centre back role, even though he played there in the youth systems. But that is absolutely vital. I mean, we saw last season the mismatch between the Inter front two, and we asked Romagnoli to step up and produce a big game in that derby when we needed it most. We said, just do something. Let's just keep Lukaku quiet somehow. And he got humiliated so badly for that third goal that I think that in the eyes of some fans, he hasn't recovered since that. That was a pretty big watershed moment for him. And we're asking him now for another big game, for him to marshal the defence. It's not easy. There's going to be space in behind me because Teo gets forward, and that's going to be one of our big threats. Calabria, he's missed a long time. He's been out for a long time. It's all right coming on and having an encouraging performance against a team that doesn't attack. Like, they had no shots on target, Juve.
Yeah.
But we need him to keep one of the best wing backs in the league quiet, and it's a very, very tall order.
I think for Romagnoli now it's a bit easier this game because nor Lautaro or Dzeko are the guys who will, get in behind and drive it crazy. Yeah, it's not the same. Lukaku was different than Hakimi as well, but I think he's better suited for this type of game. I just think that when Inter comes at you, they come at you with so many, and then it becomes more about the collective defense than the individual one. And I think that without Kier and without Tomori, I think even like Milan were obviously robbed against Spezia. We all saw what happened. It was a big robbery, but I think there was a period in the second half where Spezia came in attack after attack after attack. And I think if that's Inter, it's not going to be good, So I think that's where, Milan will have to show that they can handle it. And I think it's good for both Inter and Milan, even though Inter, of course, has some South Americans and Milan, of course, has some players that played in the AFCON. But most players are fresh. Most players have rested. Inter goes into an absolutely crazy period. You were saying that if Inter loses and Napoli takes points, Inter has Milan and Napoli, one after another, and with Roma in between in the cup. So Inter's schedule is, really, really crazy. So, but as of now, the team is fresh and rested and everyone is recovered. And I think that will mean it will be a good football match, no matter what happens. Because these games always tend to be played at, after a national team break with all the South Americans gone or all the guys having played matches or after Champions League or whatever. I think this is like a good time to play a derby because the players are fresh. You will see good football, and hopefully the pitch has been fixed as well.
Just completely blown up and started again. The idea. I mean, God, it was like a racetrack towards the back end there before the. But yeah, as you said, this should be a good spectacle. Some of the numbers we've talked for years, but both sets of fans have talked about how Syria as a brand is a lot stronger when both Milan clubs are challenging at the top end. It being a 6v7 game does no good for anyone, and that includes other teams within the league. This time, the narrative is very positive. The two teams have 102 combined points in 45 games this season, 31 combined wins, 100 combined goals. That's higher than the other city-based derbies in the top 5 European leagues. So the Manchester derby doesn't get anywhere close to those numbers. But all the other Real and Atletico, all that. So the Derby della Madonnina is once again sort of top of the pile when it comes to showpiece football. I'm a bit annoyed that it's on a Saturday evening, but that might actually work better in terms of viewing figures. We don't really know. But yeah, with that all being said, let's hope for a barnstormer and let's do some predictions. I'll let you lads think first. I'll go with mine. I think there's a lot riding on this game for both teams. I said this about the Juve game last time. Part of me thinks that's going to cancel out. It's not the end of the world if Inter don't win this game. They will keep that gap on us. I'm still not sure how long Napoli can hold out for in this title push. So we'll see about them. But I also think this is a massive game for us, but it's also not our style to go gung-ho from minute one and then just hope to outscore an opponent who's scored more goals than us. I think Pioli's a bit more streetwise than that. When we opened up in that crucial derby last season, second half of last season, it didn't end well for us. When we pushed too hard for that equalising goal, that's when things fell apart at the other end. So I expect us to keep things tighter this time, push it a bit, but a bit like the game earlier this season, a moment of quality maybe from both sides. I'm going to draw again. Up to you now.
Positivity over here. I don't even know how positive I can be. 2-1 Milan. I'm gonna stick by that all week, not change it once. And last time it went that way, Milan won 3-0 when I predicted that. So we'll go with that.
You did, yeah.
So yeah, 2-1 Milan. I won't say the goal scorers because I'll get hounded in the comments.
Calhanoglu.
Does he begin with S? I'm guessing.
Yeah, Salamaka, Dopieta. No, just stay at 2-1.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think Roma game. Every time I've done a big game prediction, I always go for draws. So I'm going to stick with that again. 1-1. I've got to do it, man. I've got to do it. But I think this
Where's
is
the fun?
There's no fun. There's no fun in this, especially if we lose. I think this is a huge. I think if we lose this game, Milan top four, man. I think it's not looking good. Because I know Gian, I'm falling off the rails. But honestly, this is such a motivating blow to us. And then Milan, if we lose this game and Juventus win the game, Milan, they're 4 points off us. There's question marks of the January transfer window, which I'm sure we'll come on to in a sec. I just think you're right. I don't think it's going to be like a gun-ho game. Milan aren't going to come out. It's going to be a very tactical game, probably quite cagey. That's why I say 1-1. And I think I'm worried about intercept pieces, not so much their transitional play, what we were talking about there, so much on the counter-attack. I think we're more of a threat for that, but I don't think we're going to see that. It's going to be very isolated incidents. But yeah, I think 1-1, honestly. I think it'll be that.
Sites, do you want to take your mask off for us? Posing as Stefano there. Sites,
obviously, I pray.
Take your mask off.
I would take a 1-0 win in the last minute from Kalulu's little
handball.
Yeah, a handball. I'll take anything, but I honestly think Inter Milan are big this year, and I'm kind of concerned defensively. But yeah, 1-1.
Yeah, I have to go with 2-1, I guess, for Inter. I kind of believe in a draw as well, but someone has to go with the Inter win, and I think that Inter has everything to win, but I think that Milan is a very good team, and I think that having Theo now in difference from last derby will make a big difference. Might even make a difference in a bad way if he doesn't get his defensive right, but he usually gets that right. He wants to bounce back after the penalty miss, I think. I'm going with 2-1 Inter. I think that Theo will score the goal, and I'm going with Calhanoglu 2 goals. I think I have
There's no need for that, mate. We know we've invited you here. We've provided tea and biscuits, and you've done that to us.
Yeah, but I think it's it's either the own goal or the 2 goals. I really don't think he has an in between, and that has to be it for this game for him. I think that Inter 2-1 is a good one.
Yeah, I think all kind of form just goes completely out of the window when it comes to a derby. Maybe not so much with it not being at full capacity, but I still do think a lot of form just goes completely out the window for a game like this. And it's just going to be who wants it more on the night at the end of the day. Inter probably know that if they do lose, if they're still there, Milan players probably know that Scudetto goes a little bit further away from them if they lose, or a lot further away from them in some people's heads. So it's just going to be who wants it more on the day, I think.
Definitely. That's it. We'll see. We'll see. It's a big one. I said last season, sorry, it was the biggest in a long time, and I actually predicted that Inter would win that derby second half of last season 3-0, and I nailed it. So I don't know. I don't want to nail it this time. I hope we win. Right, let's move on quickly before we move into the business that Milan did, because we did loads. We did a lot of good stuff in the January window, which we'll come on to. We'll quickly touch on what Inter did in the transfer window. Bit of a quick operation, this one, to get through in the end. Robin Gosens joins from Atalanta. Is it a loan with option or obligation?
I don't know. At one stage, I was really confused about all the. They'll buy him when Inter plays their first game or scores the first goal in 2023 or something. I don't know if it's an option or if it's an obligation or if it's just a masked obligation.
Yeah, nobody knows. I like these loan with option that turns into an obligation when Daniel Maldini makes his 5th appearance and all this stuff that Paolo's throwing into. So Gosens, we know how big a threat he has been for Atalanta under Gasperini. He's had his injury problems, it would be fair to say, over the last sort of 12, 18 months. He's not going to be available for another month, so we don't have to worry about him for this game. But I think it's another pretty astute bit of business from Marotta and co. Also, with an eye to Perisic potentially leaving at the end of the season. Is that looking like happening? Do you think it's going to be an upgrade, downgrade? Might he stay?
I think Inter did an operation for today and for the future. And I think, so if Perisic stay, you'll have the most competitive left wing in the league and one of the best left wings in Europe, because Di Marco is, he's going back as a center back. And if you have Gosens and Perisic on the same, position, that's going to be good competition. But I kind of hope Perisic stays. I really do hope that they can manage to provide what he wants, because as of today, Perisic is a better player than Gosens. I think it's clear. We don't know how Gosens come back from the injury. We know that Perisic is doing well both defensively and offensively, and he won a treble with Bayern. He took Croatia to World Cup final, and whilst being absolute key, he won with Inter as in a role that isn't his, to be honest, and he's doing well. So I'd love to keep both, and I think that Inter are working to keep both. And I'd love to see Inter at one stage this season have Perisic on the right wing and Gosens on the left wing. But I think if Perisic chooses to leave, Gosens is one of few players that can give Inter physicality, goals and assists in a way that Perisic was doing. And he comes from a system that is very similar. Atalanta plays man like Inter does. I'm surprised that they let him go to Inter, to be honest. But I heard that he had decided to leave Atalanta when they hurried him back from injury, so he got another injury, and he was very angry with the club for that, because if you guys remember, he came back from a bad injury after Euros, I think, and then he got injured 2 or 3 games in. So, but so he of course didn't have many offers, but I was surprised to see them letting him go to Inter just like that in a day. So curious to see how he comes back from injury, but a really good business for Inter no matter what happens with Perisic, who of course I hope and I think that there's a chance he will stay.
He was actually spotted with Perisic in the stands at a Milan game, so might be a reverse Calhanoglu about to happen.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
I can say is it doesn't really work out well when a fullback from Bergamo comes to the city of Milan, so don't get your hopes up too high. We have it with Conte, so...
Yeah, but that's the first generation of the guys,
Yeah.
That was the Gagliardini and the first Kessie and those guys, they were just chicks. But this generation here is Champions League proven and did so well in the Euros. All of them, even Male, who was there for 3 months, was so good. Yeah. So I think that this generation now, after the Gagliardinis, and of course Kessie turned in well, but he had some bad seasons. These guys from Atalanta are doing well, and I think he comes to the same system. So nothing really changes for him. Like the other guys have changed system and formation and everything, but he comes into the exact same system and formation, so he should be doing well. I just hope that he's good after the injuries.
Yeah, that's always the concern. We'll see. I think it's another one where, like with the changing manager in the summer, it's like perfect system for system swap. If Perisic leaves, even if he stays, got a guy there who knows how to play that wing back role very effectively in this league. It should be a seamless transition. And then the other one is Philippe Caicedo. Now, this has gone under the radar a little bit because it was talked about maybe for days and weeks before it actually happened. Because he's come from Genoa, so it's not exactly big breaking news, player going rival to rival, whatever. But I actually like Caicedo. I've always kind of rated him, and we were linked with him backup striker before Giroud ended up arriving. If you look back at his numbers, I think he's got 9 league goals last season, 8 league goals the season before that. He was playing backup to Ciro Immobile, which is no easy task. He was coming on feeding off scraps last 15, 20 minutes of games and still getting good numbers. I think this is good because he's going to get more game time, you would think, in a 2-striker system. And he knows about playing in the big games. There's no doubt about it, I think this is pretty good. It might go down as an absolute masterstroke, or he might actually injure himself, and we don't know. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that one?
I when Correa was injured, and Correa and Sanchez, they kind of get injured this season. I think Inter has few injuries in general, but these 2 guys are those who travel to Argentina and Chile, and either come back injured or get injured. So when he was injured, I thought that Inter needed a backup striker, and I think the good thing with Caicedo is he knows the coach, he knows the system, and he has a bit of speed in him. Like, he has some quality that no one in the attack has. So I think that he will get more playing time than people would expect, because with the amount like Inter now, so it's Saturday, it's Milan, Wednesday Roma, Saturday Napoli, Wednesday Liverpool, Sunday or Saturday Sassuolo. It's 2 weeks, game every 3 days. You need everyone you can get. And Caicedo being able to team up with anyone up front is good. And so the thing is, like, when you sign players, the thing I think is important is when you sign them from a top 7 or 5 team, they know how it is to play defenses that are 10 guys in the box, just defending, just fighting. And if you get a guy from the bottom teams, like if you check Tonali, his first season was very much adapting to not playing on the counter. He didn't have 30 meters of space to run at Milan the first season. They're a top team. You're going to face guys, chopping you down, taking it down. So I think Caicedo has the experience needed. He knows the coach, and Inter really needed a striker when Correa was hurt. So no, a good business, and it's just a loan, so it doesn't really so much. And he took a wage cut to come, So
God, I wish our players would take a wage cut instead they're asking for 8 million.
Good opportunity for him, I think, and good signing. I really wanted like a midfielder, because I think outside Brozovic, Calhanoglu, Barella, his team, since he left, Eriksson left, it's Vidal, Gagliardini, and Vecino, and the quality gap there is really big. I mean, like, Milan can throw up Calabria, and he's quite good at the midfield, but yeah, I would have wanted a midfielder on loan, but I'd rather do nothing than just taking someone in for the sake of it.
And that brings us perfectly to Milan's January transfer window. Thank you for that segue. We did nothing. we didn't. It's funny you say that, because I was just going to change my derby prediction to be 1-1, but more specifically with Caicedo and Marco Lazetic to score inside the last 10 minutes. That'd be good odds, I reckon. So yeah, we made one signing, Marco Lazetic from Red Star Belgrade, deal around about €5 million. Pietro Pellegri's loan got cancelled. Plizzari went out on loan to Lecce. Andrea Conti went to Sampdoria. Who else am I missing? Who else left? Oh, Milos Kerkez was a bit of a surprise one. He ended up leaving the Primavera and going to AZ Alkmaar, and based on a deleted social media post, it was over a lack of senior opportunities, which is fair enough. We made a decent capital gain on. So people are absolutely outraged about a guy that they've only ever seen comps ACM videos of. But that's the way that football Twitter works, I suppose. But fair play to the lad for showing a bit of ambition and going somewhere, unlike Gian.
Castillejo, he's signed for 6 clubs this window, hasn't he? If I'm not mistaken. I mean, like, he's literally been shoved in a shipment container to the training grounds, and he's just got out and gone, no, and just come straight back our way. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get why you wouldn't want to leave. Like, it's a World Cup year. You're sitting on the bench. Yeah, you love the club, which is fair enough. Like, would I, if I were in this position, want to leave Milan? Probably not. But then, you know, you've got the opportunity to go back to your home club in a World Cup year to get started minutes, but you're choosing to sit on the bench and be a third choice behind a delivery man. And all right, fair enough, Salamaca's a go, but I just really can't figure it out why he didn't want to leave. But I guess it is what it is. Hopefully, he comes on, shuts me up, and scores in the derby. But
that would be incredible.
One that
but he never gets to play. I'm kind of surprised because, okay, like he doesn't want to leave, and that's bothering probably everyone. But is he that much worse than Messias when Messias is bad? Like, I think Messias is a good player, but is Castillejo that bad? I really don't think he is that bad.
I don't think he's that bad. It's just more the fact that he's not in our plans whatsoever. Like, he's not in current plans, future plans, past plans. He's never been in a plan. And he just...
Because I thought that Messias would be playing 10 at when Brahim needs to like rest, but he's just playing on the wing all the time. And, I think he's a good player, but, he's also quite old. And, if it's between one or the other, it's not like they're competing with, a 17-year-old big talent that they're taking playing time from. I really think that he should get more playing time, but...
Yeah, I think when he's been handed an opportunity, sometimes he has taken it. This is Castillejo, but it's so obvious that we just don't want him at the club. Like, we've been trying to force him out of the club. So, if you really love the club, and it's a bit, I guess, in a way similar to Ibrahimovic when he went to PSG, he didn't want to leave, but we were like, we need the money, we're selling you. So he went reluctantly. Kaká claims that he left Milan for Real Madrid to help the club out money-wise. Another player that loves the club. So Castillejo leaving would have helped the club out. It would have reduced the wage bill. It might have freed up someone to come in late in the window, but instead he's choosing just to sit on a wage and not take any minutes. And it's rather frustrating coming from someone that loves the club. If he didn't love the club and he would you're like, yeah, whatever. But when you claim to love it, you'd want to do everything to help them out, I guess.
We should also just clear up at this point that he'd said yes to joining Valencia, but they pulled out of the deal. This is according to Di Marzio. He says that Castillejo was willing to go to Valencia, but they decided to go for Bryan Gil on loan from Spurs instead. And then Sampdoria struck up a negotiation on deadline day because they couldn't get Gregoire de Frel from Sassuolo. So they wanted him in to be God knows what, a number 10, second striker. No idea what Gianpaolo wants anymore, Don't know what's going on with him, how he's still getting jobs. But yeah, it was a chance to go to a manager that he knew well and a manager who trusted him. And also on a dry loan. Like, he was going there for 6 months and then he could have evaluated his future better in the summer. He was moving it's an hour away in the train to Genoa from Milano. So it seemed a bit of a head scratcher to me, but it was just I think it was their director, Fagiano, came out and said it was just a bit last minute. It was the last few hours of the window thing, and he wasn't convinced by the idea. So no grudges held there from either side. I imagine our management are a little bit annoyed, sort of saying, look, we're lining these things up for you, and they're not happening time and time again.
And he gets Milan Twitter after him.
Well, isn't he pop out at this point? He's a player whose stock is constantly declining when he's not even playing a minute. Like, fair enough if he was coming on and stinking it up off the bench, but this is a guy who every time he doesn't play gets worse in the eyes of the fans.
Yeah, because I think we're wasting our effort here. What you're saying there, Maldini and they're setting up clubs for this guy. Why are we wasting time trying to get this guy experience? Get your value up. Go out on loan, a dry loan. Go out on loan. It's not hard. It's not that much responsibility. Don't you want to play the game that you love to play? You're not part of this. I'm sorry to hammer home on the guy. I don't think he's completely awful, but he's not part
He's
of the
also
plan.
not listening, so go for it.
Yeah, shit. Sorry, I like him. I like him. I think, no, honestly, I remember before I joined you guys, SempreMilan, I think I DM'd whoever took the DM from SempreMilan. I said that he's got something to play, part of the side. I like the way he transition. You know, he helps out defensively. I like the way and he just went from decent to worse towards last season. And he's featured a few times this season when there's been no pressure because he's completely out the the plans at the side. And without that pressure, he's been allowed to sort of play without fear. And that's why he had that good game against Hellas Verona. But other than that, it's not something we can rely upon. And eventually he knows that his future isn't here. So where's the ambition? Do you want to play and get yourself a new club? Of course, it has to be on his terms because he wants to go back to Spain. But just go out on loan, man. 6 months to Sampdoria, get your stock higher, and then get a move in the summer. It's not that hard.
He will get his move in the summer. Like, there's no two. I think this is it now. This is the cut off. He's got to go somewhere in the summer, and he'll go back to Spain. There'll be I'm surprised about Valencia.
I don't think he will. I think
year from the end of his contract, we should rip it up like we've done with Conte. But yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised that Valencia will link because I don't think he's at that level. To be honest with you, I was thinking Espanyol, okay. Yeah, Mallorca Espanyol were apparently interested. I was thinking, yeah, all right, I can see that happening. And then, that's it. So Samu's got 2 arseholes now since you've just ripped him a new one. But that was it. I mean, there's nothing else really. That collapsed. That was the only thing that got going on the Deadline Day live blog. People were asking me, why are you doing this? It's a waste of everyone's time. And I agree with them, to be honest. I had to put a tweet out saying I've written something like 5,000 articles during the month of January. And believe me, nobody's more frustrated that we didn't sign a player than me. Because that would have been good for clicks, but it didn't happen. And so all the players
about like the whole Renato Sanchez deal, like we've all talked about this. I don't believe a word of this. Like us coming in late, 25 mil to sign him now. It broke down because obviously the contractual issues and it's too short late notice. I don't believe like for a second of it that was going to happen this January, or like maybe reporters just wanted something to write about. It just doesn't make sense. We still have Kessie's wages on the books for another 6 months. We're fine in that position. He's just come back from AFCON. Benacer's come back from AFCON. We're fine. We've got 5 players for that position. I just didn't make sense to me why we'd come in so late for a player in a position we don't need reinforcements for. I don't know. I mean, maybe you guys disagree with that, but I think that's just typical media throwing out crap and seeing what sticks.
Ordini said something interesting in a column for it was on Twitch with Milan News. Obviously well-known Milan journalist who basically said that the reason that we did it is because the management got twitchy about the reaction that they were getting. Fans, we were doing things. We went in late to be like, oh God, we were going to sign this guy in the summer anyway. Let's get him in now. Let's appease the fan base. I don't really believe a word of that either necessarily, but it might give some alibi to why we decided in the last 2 days, one day even, there's 25 million euros. We need this guy now. It's like a Gosens Inter thing, isn't it? He might end up being Perisic's replacement. Renato Sanchez is probably going to be the guy that ends up being Kessie's replacement. Bring him in early, get a bit of extra cover in, and if we were going to do it in the summer anyway, let's just give him a 6 months extra contract and see what happens there. But I was surprised by those reports. Some of it doesn't stack up to me. Like the idea Di Marzio said that we were shocked by his wage demands or something. Like we've been in talks with Jorge Mendes for about 3 months. Or something like that over Leao's renewal, and now, decades, and now we find out that Renato Sanchez wants the same salary as Kessie or whatever it is, and that's what's made the deal fall apart. I don't buy that either. I think it was just probably a last minute attempt that everyone was like, "Now, come on, let's do this."
This type of move usually. Sorry, I interrupted you, but
it's all right.
This type of move usually is when, as you said, you see that fans are reacting negatively and you need them to get okay, we tried and they were trying, but everyone today is so updated on transfers. They know that it's strange that they make an offer for a player and then get scared of his wage demands when they've been talking to Renato Sanchez for a year. They talked to Jorge Mendes about Leao for always. And I think that my instant reaction was that this is made to show that, hey, we made an effort, the player didn't want it. So I think that's logic, but yeah, It would have made more sense to go for a central back with the 25 millions, but maybe there wasn't
And the
any good enough
25
options.
million players that we were linked with as well.
Yeah.
That's how many centre backs we ended up being linked with, from Tanganga to Abdou Diallo, Eric Bailly, all these names. I mean, the Eric Bailly thing, we needed quick injury cover because Tomori was out, Romagnoli was out with COVID, and obviously Kjaer's out for the rest of the season. And Eric Bailly was the guy that certain papers kept throwing up. It's like he's not going to be available until early February. He might not even be able to do a medical like in the time that would be needed. And it just goes to show I don't think anyone's switched on with what we're doing. Because the Lazetic thing came out of nowhere. That was an operation that was closed very quickly. And the Pellegrini thing, everyone said, we're signing him permanently. We're signing him permanently from Monaco, and then we're going to loan him to Torino, and we're going to sign someone else instead. And then his loan's terminated, and he just goes to Torino directly. So I think everybody's a little bit all over the place. Sorry, John.
I don't think anyone has a Scooby-Doo with what's going on inside the club whatsoever, and I certainly don't buy the rumours that Maldini and co decided to bid late to appease some fans because they probably got a bit of abuse off certain people on Twitter. I don't buy a single bit of it. I think the management were clear in all running up until the January transfer window, saying unless an opportunity kind of does arise, we're not going to bounce because we think the squad's strong enough. I personally still think the squad is strong enough for top four and the Scudetto charge as long as everyone stays fit. With our luck, we'd probably sign a centre back and he'd get injured doing his medical. There's been no reason to suggest management have ever lied to us about what's going on with the club in terms of what our plan is, where we're going, when we're going to sign players. So
I agree.
That's why I'm not disappointed with this window. I'm frustrated that we didn't sign anyone. Yeah, a bit. But I'm just certainly not going to moan about it because we weren't promised the world. We were just told how it is, and they've stuck by that. And to me, the squad is competitive. We go back to last year when everyone was saying, "No, we need to get out of Europe and we'll win the Scudetto because playing once a week wins you the Scudetto." Now we're out of Europe, and it's suddenly, oh no, playing once a week's very bad. Like it just. None of it makes any sense to me, and that riles me up more than signing Sanchez for 25 million on deadline day. Bullshit rumours, really.
Sounds like the groundwork's pretty good. I mean, it obviously depends on the sources you trust. There's always that disclaimer, but there are multiple sources that are saying that Botman and Renato Sanchez are two big targets for the summer, and things are proceeding well on that front. Both players, I think, wanted to stay until the summer, maybe. Obviously, Lille have got a big Champions League round of 16 tie that they want to be a part of and stuff. Botman basically said, I decided to stay until the end of the season, but then my adventure will be over. Milan are a wonderful club. So that sounds pretty good. Those would be two big reinforcements. But again, it might be because Romagnoli's leaving for free, Kessie's leaving for free. Can't really do too much when we're not generating any turnover from the exit of big players. But we got this question, so I'm going to throw it in. We got it from multiple people. MK on YouTube, there were people on Twitter who asked it. But what happens if we end up missing out on top four this season? Because if Gian, it was in here, because we didn't bolster the squad in January, will we sink back down to being a top 16 because we'll have even less revenue to spend? Now, the whole theory is speculate to accumulate. You bring forward investments you were going to make in the summer to lock in that top four, to lock in the future revenue that you're going to get. I understand that argument. I understand that side of it. It's not always as cut and dry as that. The market's a very fluid situation. Things can 1 hour to the next. Players are the biggest deciding factor in the transfer market now, especially now with agents and the power that they have. If a player says he doesn't want to go somewhere, if a player says, no, I'm staying till the end of the season, they will stay. That's it. And that's where I think we got to with our targets. And instead of saying, fine, here's 25 million for Abdou Diallo, who we weren't really convinced by, instead, we've decided to say, we can get by until the summer, and then we bring in the big boys. That's what I think we've done.
If this squad doesn't get top four, then
sack Pioli.
Probably. You probably would. It's better than it was last season. That's just a fact. Like, the younger players have got it. Like Maldini said, they're a year more experienced. They're a year better. Leao's a different breed of player. Teo's looks more rounded. Tonali's fantastic. If this squad can't drag themselves into the top 4, and it shouldn't even be a case of dragging, because I think we'll finish comfortably inside it with 7 points clear already, then there's something genuinely wrong. And I don't even think a couple of panic buying winter signings would have made the difference. If this squad seriously drops out of the top 4, then there's a serious issue there. So, yeah, I don't think a couple of signings would have made much difference in that sense. Maybe that'd be the difference to us making a real Scudetto charge, but certainly not top 4. And I just, kind of going off the point, I see the people that are saying, oh, Maldini needs to leave the club, he doesn't care, he's not spending money that's there. I mean, do you really think Paolo Maldini, of all people in the world, wants Milan to fail and doesn't want to make Milan stronger, like it's been in his family for years upon years? And the thought that he won't spend money on players to make the squad better.
It's not his money. The money the rich people don't understand how rich our owners are. They've just bought some university software company for $13 billion today. Like the well is very deep. Elliott management have very deep pockets, but we've also got a very strict vision, and that's how mega rich hedge funds stay rich. They know what they're doing. They know when to push the boat out. I understand the frustrations of fans. That's what happens when teams around you strengthen. But I've seen people say, right, we're running a different race to other teams at the moment. Ours is more about medium and long-term sustainability. It's about getting our revenues back up to among the elite teams in Europe. The stadium has a big part to play, of course, but developing a young core that are going to get better year on year. We are not going to be in the market for the Dusan Vlahovic's of world football for another 2 or 3 years. Maldini said it himself. I don't know what more you need than Maldini saying we need a bit more Champions League football and a bit more money, because we were in a really shit place before and we're in a much better place now, and people need to be humble about it.
Yeah, that's my whole point with defending the management to an extent where, you know, we just haven't been lied to. When they came in, they set out a clear goal that in 5 years we'll be able to make these big signings, because as long as we get consistent Champions League football, we've been in it once and kind of flopped in it, and suddenly we're expected to spend 200 million on a market like two idiots that went around the world in 80 days did, and, you know, got the Magnificent Seven in and it just completely flopped.
True.
Do you know,
that might be the thumbnail.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I
think the important thing for Milan is that you're going towards the summer where you have to replace again, and that's, you know, I think that's the part that too many people forget. Like, if you're going into summer and, like, let's say 2023, you know, no contracts expiring, we have a good situation for all players. If someone is leaving, we're getting paid, so we'll be able to spend. Then you can kind of look at what do we do, what do we spend, how much do we spend. But now you're going into summer where you don't, you have to spend big amount of money, and those 2 players or 3 that you get in can't go wrong. And if you end up spending 25 millions now for a player and miss out on the Champions League, that's a disaster, right? But if you haven't spent the money, and as I see it, I know Milan have been unlucky with injuries, and I think that somehow it also doesn't come down to luck, because there are too many similar injuries. So someone should be asking questions around Milanello and Milan Lab, like, how is this possible? Because at one stage it's too much. You know, of course it's some bad luck, but if you play less games, it means you have more time to recover. It means Giroud and Zlatan, you know, the old guys, they can recover more. All logic, and I mean all logic, says that most players have had COVID as well. So all the logic says Milan should have more players available for less games. And I see that Milan has been going strong for 2 years. And if they have less games, which should mean less injuries, I don't see how they should magically drop against opponents that are playing European football as well. I don't see that. And if it happens, I'll be the first one to say I was dumb as shit, but I don't see it happen. And I think you have to consider the fact that these guys know that they have to spend big in the summer. Like I think that's, you can't deny that. And then you want to get it right. You want to have the time and the opportunity and everything that is there in summer, which isn't in January, because I don't think Lille wants to leave those guys in the middle of the season. And I think they don't want either. You're gonna get some guy that you get in, like we're in February now, guys. It's it's 20 games left of the season. Until Renato Sanchez learns the language and the tactics, it's April. If he has a Tonali kind of adaptation, you're messed. You have spent money on someone who won't make any difference. So for me, it doesn't make sense, and I think that too many people judge Milan's market on what Juve are doing. Juve injected 400 million euros, or what Inter is doing. Inter sold for 200 millions in the summer. I think the only criticism that can be said should be reflected on the summer, because I think in the summer, as I was seeing things, Milan was 1 or 2 signings away from being a real Scudetto challenger, and if they win the derby, they still are. But that's where I think, where everyone might have thought that Calhanoglu shouldn't have been replaced or was replaced by Messias and Diaz coming in, he wasn't. And I think that's the criticism where it should be given, was in the summer. Now you're repairing, and I don't think Milan has a lot of repairing to do. And Juve, they are okay. They spent big, did great signings, and sold greatly, but they are desperate, guys. They're 7
if they
points
miss
behind.
out on the top 4, it's game
It's a
over
disaster.
pretty much.
Yeah, I think they will make it, but what they are showing is not only that they are doing good moves, which they have made, I can't deny that, but they also shown that they are desperate because they did really bad in the summer. And I think you have to give Milan that, and I also think that you have to give this group the fact that they have been consistently delivering for 2 years.
You can't just completely overhaul. Sorry, go on.
No, you can't, but it's been like 2 years with these consistent injuries. Like you said, someone needs to answer for these injuries now because it's getting ridiculous. But the fact that we're still there for the second season running, challenging for Scudetto, where I think in the last 2 years, I don't think we've fielded the same lineup more than 2 games running. I think it's fantastic to be in that position. And I don't think making signings for the sake of it, just because to appease the fans, is the right way to go. Like I said before the window started, when Kier got injured, the centre-back was the most imperative signing that we had to make, but that needed to come at the start of January, and it didn't. And Gabbia, Romagnoli, Kalulu have seen us through this month fairly well, in my opinion. It hasn't been fantastic, but they've exceeded expectations. And bringing in someone on the last week of the market, that centre-back would not start the derby in a league that he doesn't know. So it would have been a pointless signing, because then Tomori's back, and you're still probably going to stay with Tomori, Romagnoli till the end of the season, and slowly, gradually include this signing. So it's better to get the signings done now, and so they arrive on the first day of pre-season, so they've got all the pre-season just to get ready for next season.
Yeah, that's it. The market's over anyway, so now we can go back to focusing on football and football only. We'll see. So yeah, I wanted to ask, I saw in the news that Inter have issued 450 million euros worth of bonds, this whole private financing, public financing kind of thing. Are you still worried about where Inter at financially, or is it like over your head now? Are you just not that bothered? It's not your money kind of thing?
When last year things were at their worst, and reports were coming about the liquidity not being there, I thought, and the ownership being so far away and kind of being stuck in China with the problems, I was really fed up. I was never kind of worried, because I thought that with clubs like Inter Milan, there's always a way out to sell, and I don't really. So I think the bond was due in 2022, and now it's due in 2027. So from my point of view, that's good. I think the interest rate is, wasted money, because it's too high. But I think after the pandemic hitting Inter in that way, when they were at that stage in the project and with the local sponsors, being hit as well, they resolved the situation well. I obviously wouldn't have minded having an owner like Juve has, that cares about the club and that injects money and with a smile. But I also think that Inter were financially doing really well before the pandemic hit. They were growing their revenue. They were getting Champions League. They were attracting top players and top coaches. And then I think it stopped down, and I would very much like to get back with that. And I think that Inter has all the possibilities to grow their revenues again. I think Nike has to be, renewed the contract. We're looking at almost double the money. New stadium, as you guys know about, is coming, so that will of course help. I think the shirt sponsor is giving much more money. So just as with Milan, the things are going the right way. Milan has less debt. I don't really care about debt. I don't think UEFA does either. I think all in football is so strange, because I think all ambitious club need to have a certain amount of debt. I think that if you want to go somewhere, of course, I'd love to eliminate it, but football is a risk-taking business, and you don't go anywhere without taking risk. And I think that I want to see Inter, takes the debts down and become economically sustainable, do a lot of the work that Milan has already done. But I also think that with this situation being what it was, and with the pandemic and with the ownership that Inter's had, in difference from what Milan had, the situation was inevitable. And I think it's important that they open the stadiums again, because Milan were robbed of 5 million euros against Juve. No, that's scandalous for me.
Yeah.
It's totally wrong. And the clubs haven't been helped by the government. So I'm not worried about Inter's financial situation. I just feel that I don't want to be a club that sells players to move forward. I have seen that happen with, Tohir and the financial fair play. I've seen the, settlement agreements where you can't spend money to improve. And I honestly think that, like, for example, when Milan, was it better for them to not spend any money and lose out on European football? Or would it have been better for them to spend, go to the Champions League, and get more money? I don't want Inter to be back where they have to, do a 3-year loan for M. Villa or Jonathan or Ricky Alvarez. I don't want to see that anymore. I'm sorry, guys. I'd rather have 1 billion debt but good players on the field and playing Champions League. I am totally fine as long as the club is ambitious, and as long as the things are going the right way. I'd rather have a good team on the field that is playing where Inter and I think Milan also belongs. And Milan, I think they're doing great work, really, really good. But it takes time, and I understand that many fans don't have that patience. But I think I have seen that happen in a way that, the 7 years without the Champions League, Jon Karev making the tryout to play in the team. You guys are all better at him than football than when he was trying out. I don't never want to see that happen again. I'd rather go bankrupt than seeing those periods again.
Yeah, there was a really dark period in the mid-2010s for both teams, let's be honest. Like some of the players that we both signed on loan and permanent, dire. It is good to see, no matter what the financial situation of both clubs, we're kind of trending in different directions at the moment, but the on-field product is the best it's been for a long time. So, long may that continue.
I think like the depth at Inter, they will work on getting it down. And I think that seeing the way things went in the summer with the sales and the market plus, and I think it might happen this summer again. And as long as the replacements are at the good level, I don't have a problem with that. I just can't. So the thing about Chinese owners that I don't like is that they don't handle their own money. I think if the Elliott Fund or Juve's owners, they wake up and feel, today we don't give a shit, we're going to spend money, they spend. But with the Chinese owners, you have the government, saying in this 8-year period, no capital is going to leave China. And Suning, who were really rich, just, couldn't export their money. And I don't like having an owner like that. Like, I am obviously grateful for what these guys have done, but I think that, a different owner should be, an ownership should be working differently. Even a hedge fund works differently.
Yeah.
So that was my problem with those guys. And I really, really was fed up when they sold for 200 millions and didn't spend more than 40. But I think the things are going in the right way. And I think the key of making money is spending money, to be honest. If Inter would have missed out on Champions League, it would have been a disaster. So they have to go to Champions League. They have to be
Still could
competitive.
be.
Yeah,
Still could be. I mean, imagine if they don't end up getting top 4 now after they push the boat all the way out. I mean, they could potentially sink. But the one thing with Juve is they have filthy rich owners, and they've got shareholders who are willing to put a lot of money in just to keep them afloat. And if they miss out on the Champions League, they will just sign more players in the summer.
Yeah, I think that too, but it would be a disaster. And I think at the stage you will have a shareholder that's like, can't be doing this, guys. Whatever, what's wrong? But I think with Inter, I was always calm because, I saw Mino Raiola bring Dumfries to the team, and, he doesn't bring his players to your team if you don't have something good going on.
That's a fair point.
So I was calm, and I think that he, he has the Fry there as well. And even if one of them leaves, I think that top players still want to come to Inter. And Barella is renewing his contract. Brozovic renewed his contract. Perisic might be renewing his contract. And if these guys are renewing, something is happening. And if that's Suning or if it's an ownership change or whatever, there is still, I think, safety at Inter. And I think Milan president also, very calm about the Inter situation because we're in the stadium stuff together. So
there must be some kind of disclosure there, really.
Yeah. So I think that the worst is past. And I think that things are moving in the right direction, even though they made a new bond.
Yeah, be interesting to see how many other clubs go down that route as well, because debts are rising, operating losses are rising, and nobody's stepping up to foot the bill. While the pandemic effects are still sort of on a timeline. Do a couple of questions and then we'll wrap it up. I'm conscious of the time. Rohit asked on Twitter, assuming Zlatan decides to call it a day at the end of this season, what sort of striker profile should Milan be going for? Tall number 9, so sort of his replacement directly, or kind of a false 9, how Rebic plays for us? Well, we've said many times on the podcast, we collectively, I don't know, Stefano, I don't know if you actually agree with this or not, but we think we play better football. We play more fluid football with Rebic up front. Early in the season when we didn't have either Ibra or Giroud, we played some good stuff with Rebic up front, not giving points of reference, moving, shape shifting, interchanging positions, all that kind of stuff, using space as the spare man. That was very much our strength. And now we're in a position where we might be able to reinvent the attack a little bit if Ibra calls it a day at the end of the season. I think quite a lot hinges on those March playoffs for Sweden, to be honest. I don't know what's the inside track on Ibra's future. See, I'm going to ask you as a Swede.
Nobody knows, do they? I think we're at a very rare stage where it depends more on what Milan wants to do than what Zlatan wants to do. I think if Milan are like, you know what, this can't go on anymore, because you're not playing, you're injured too much, and then I think he might not be that anymore, and I would be the saddest of everyone because I want to see him do the World Cup, and I think he wants to do that as well. But there's an interesting Swedish young striker that has been connected to Milan earlier, Alexander Isak, and I think they're talking about Scamacca for Inter and that he can learn from Dzeko, and having Isak and Zlatan together for 1 year at Milan would be kind of intriguing. So I think Isak himself wants a Premier League move, but if I'm Milan, if I make Champions League, I am going for a striker like that. I'm going for a young, technical, valid striker. And I think the Zlatan type and the Giroud type, you have those guys. Go for someone else. But the step to Belotti, I think, who's free, is very close. And We'll see. But I think Zlatan wants to do the World Cup, and Milan is his way to make that. So for him, if he has to cut his wages to stay there and get the adrenaline that he likes, I think he will do it. But I think it comes down to Milan. Do they want to renew? It is the youth project after all, and those two guys are not so young.
They are 76 combined. It's
But last season Zlatan was delivering. When he was on the field, he scored.
Still is. He's our top scorer. He's got 8 goals this season.
Yeah, and this season he's having more problems and he's playing less. And I don't know. If I was a Milan fan, I would be a bit fed up with that, and I would be fed up with Giroud as well because I expected him to be more like sane. But yeah, I really hope Zlatan is fresh. Maybe can avoid scoring in the derby, but for the rest, I really hope he's there and does well.
I think
Vlahovic would have been perfect for Milan as well.
Oh, we know.
We don't talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I agree with. We're definitely better with a false nine and someone with a bit more speed on the counter attack. I don't preferably want someone like Alexander. Is it Isaac? I mean, I've seen him play a little bit. I like his style of play, but I'd rather we have someone who can do a bit of everything. And I just don't think he's clinical enough with his finishing. Maybe he needs to work on that. I like what we have with Leao, so I'd rather someone a bit more clinical up front, like hopefully Jonathan David would be the perfect solution. I think it is detrimental keeping Ibra beyond this year. We will talk about how we just don't play. I mean, it's all well and good he scores goals, but the style of football we play with him up there, I just think it just doesn't click in the transitional perspective and the speed perspective and the counter perspective. And I think that's our biggest asset. And I think we can add to that with someone of a bit of speed.
Yeah, I kind of throw in that stat. All of Brahim Diaz's goal contributions this season have come without Ibrahimovic on the pitch. So those two haven't.
And that's the important thing. And I think, don't get me wrong, I think Ibra's a fantastic player. He's a talisman. The mentality he brings to the side cannot be disputed. And of course, the fear is that once he leaves, how would his side, react to it in a mental state? Is there enough experience there?
You'd like to think
there is, and what he's done to pass the mantle and has been, give him a background role, wasn't it? But I still think to get to the next step as a club and have someone you can rely upon being fit for 80% of the season, 90% of the season, we have to get past this summer. But that's also down to the financials. If we can afford to get a 40, 50 million striker, which we might not be able to do because we have to reimburse other positions. So it's all what I want, but is it actually a reality? That's the question.
Honestly, since postponing that investment in the striker until the summer of 2023, which I know sounds daft, but if we're going to have to splash big money on centre-back and a central midfielder, Belotti on a free transfer becomes a very tempting hypothesis to then kick the problem down the line for another year.
Ibra needs to be gone in this.
I think Gian's on a bit of a time lag, so we're going to have to crack on. The final question comes from Football Drawn. Simone Inzaghi was heavily linked to replace Gattuso in summer 2019 before Gianpaolo got hired. Could he have done a job with the squad Milan had at the time, or would it have been a disaster given the delicate period that the club was in?
Maybe. No, I am.
Go. Gian, I've had to mute you, sorry.
So with that, I'm gone.
I think that's an interesting question. The alternate timeline thing is always an interesting theory to me. Like how would things have worked out if we'd have had a bit more stability then instead of going for Gianpaolo and a complete revolution in that sense? But it would have been a revolution under Inzaghi as well. There's no two ways about it. He would have switched us completely from a tactical point of view. Might not have been a very good fit for us. I think Inzaghi stayed at Lazio for the right amount of time and took the jump when he knew it was the right step in his career, and to a club where I think he knew it was going to be a good fit as well. And also a club where there are expectations, into the Scudetto winners, but with all the overhanging trouble, the financial situation, the sale of 2-star players, the departure of other players, it wasn't necessarily like you have to win the league again this year. It was more like, let's just keep playing good football and see what happens. And I think he's taken to the role like a duck to water. And I don't really want to think about the alternative hypothesis because we could have completely discarded the other Inzaghi brother onto a waste pile by now.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about what could have been. I think Gianpaolo kind of showed that Gattuso was doing a good job, but maybe nowhere near as good as he could have if he was Spalletti or someone else. I think Gianpaolo was just it just was wrong man, wrong moment, wrong players. Everything was just wrong about that, and it turned out well afterwards. But I don't know if. I don't think, as you said, Simone Inzaghi, I think he knew when it was time to break his legacy at Lazio. And, Inter were going for Allegri, and, Simone Inzaghi was more or less renewing with Lazio when they came. But Marotta wanted him at Juve, but they went for Allegri. And I think that also made a difference for Inzaghi, because I think he felt with Lazio he had a team that probably could have been better than Milan back then. And I think that now with Inter he felt that, well, his old fans wouldn't be so angry. He was leaving after having done everything he could. He could do really well. And I don't think that was the case if he would have gone to Milan at that stage. And I really think that would have been the truth for everyone, because I think that Milan team, they didn't just need a good coach, they needed Zlatan as well. And I think when Zlatan came in,
coaches.
Yeah, exactly, because Zlatan, I remember Pioli saying on press conferences, like, people don't joke around in training if Zlatan is here. So I think that team really needed more than just a good coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from like a tactical perspective as well, I completely agree with everything you said there. And if you look at the squad at the time, you have to really consider the personnel players that we had. Also tactically, and I've said this to you, Ollie, many times, I never want to see Milan play a 3-at-the-back formation. I just don't think historically we've ever done it, succeeded at it, or even in the future, I don't think we'll ever look to that. And Simone Inzaghi, obviously his time at Lazio was the only formation he's ever used. So that transition, seeing him take over the Inter Milan role, has been seamless, because they're a successful club anyway, and obviously they got the setup there ready for him. I think if he joined Milan at that time, or even now, I think there would be that sort of transitional issue: does he have the personnel there? Are they sort of tactically, ready for this formation, the way he plays football? I think it's a very hypothetical question, but I still think you'd have the same issues you would do with most coaches with that team that we had back then.
Yeah, I'll end with one more question, then we'll go about Jello. Where will Milan finish this season? And I'll add on, what's the top 5 in order? What have we got after the January window? I think Juve make it by the skin of their teeth. And for some reason, I've got Atalanta dropping out. I don't think Jeremy Boga's a bad signing at all. And I think Gasperini's the kind of coach who could unlock him. However, and I know this is dangerous because they always find a way. I don't know. I just don't see Juve missing out. And I look at the current top 4 and I think Atalanta are the ones that just haven't quite hit those same heights this season. We dismantled them in Bergamo. The 3-2 scoreline didn't reflect the kind of game that it was. And they've just fallen a little bit short in those big games. That 0-0 with Inter was like a really, really good 0-0 game. Both teams were sort of going for the jugular at different moments, and it never really happened. But I think Atalanta last season wins that game comfortably. They're just not quite firing on all the cylinders yet. So I've got Inter winning the league. I've got I'm going to be bold and say us second. Then I've got Napoli, Juve, Atalanta.
Yeah, I think the easy thing is to leave Atalanta out. And I want to be bold enough to think that the top 4 remains as it is and that Juve flops.
Yes.
But they always find a way. Don't make a short clip of this and post on Twitter. They always find a way. And I think that they will as well. But I think that Inter, Milan, and Napoli have played the best football in Italy. I think they've been better than Atalanta. I think they've been way better than Juve. I think even Roma has played better than Juve, but haven't got the same quality, of course. So I'm going to leave Juve out, and everyone will have a laugh at me at the end of the season because they'll make it, but I'm going to leave them out because I think that the top 4 as it is now deserves to be there.
Yeah, they're gonna laugh at both of us because I'm gonna agree with that one. I've said Juventus are out of it from the start of the season. I still think they got massive issues in the attack, and I think Vlahovic, of course, is a fantastic striker. There's still a service issue I think they're going to have unless Allegri really deals with their formation and maybe considers it maybe a 3-5-2 or something like that. They got issues with no, actual wingers. Chiesa's out for the season, so how are they going to create these chances for this player? So I think that issue still persists. I think, I don't know. I mean, of course, for top of the season, I think this is why Castillejo stayed. By the way, he stayed to get that winners medal because when he wins that league, he doesn't want to be at loan at Sampdoria, does he? He wants to be at this club. But no, that's it. But no, I'm going for the top 4. Juventus out.
Good. Let's hope that's true because that would be hilarious. That's the point on Vlahovic. How does your 75 million euro striker score goals if you're not having shots on target? Be interesting to see what he does to get a tune out of him. I do think Dennis Zakari is a good bit of business, to be honest. I always really wanted him to be Kessie if he had to go cost on that. But yeah, that's it. An hour 4. Wow. Shows how big the game is, I suppose, doesn't it? Jan's had to dip out. He's had connection issues. So thank you to him for joining. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. Stefano, thank you for joining.
Yeah, always a pleasure, man. Steph's _Startori. I don't know what my handle is anymore, but yeah, always a pleasure. And I'm just looking forward to a massive game on the weekend.
Sia, thank you very much for the view from the blue half of the city. I hope you are crying on Sunday. No offense.
I really hope not. Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for everyone who's watching as well.
And thank you if you made it this far. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify, all that good stuff. Check out our merchandise. Hopefully bringing some new designs on that soon. And we've just launched a newsletter, so check out our pinned tweet for that. It's how you get all the kind of filtered content, some long read stuff, ad-free, of course. So check that out. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will catch you in a week's time, hopefully, with the city painted red.
Eccolo Ante in area di rigore, Ante, Ibra, gol! Vediamo se è buono, ce lo dà buono, ce lo dà buono, ce lo dà buono!